My name doesn't matter much in this story. What matters is that 3 weeks ago, I got a text from my sister that made my stomach drop in a way I hadn't felt in 12 years. Hey, quick heads up, Melissa's on the guest list. Hope that's not weird, Melissa Chen. My high school crush. The girl I wrote a letter to in 11th grade and never had the courage to give her. The girl who moved away the summer after graduation without ever knowing how I felt. I stared at that text for a solid 5 minutes before I typed back. Why would that be weird? Lol. It was weird. It was so weird. My sister Priya was getting married in a vineyard 2 hours outside the city, the kind of wedding with string lights and a live jazz trio and place cards written in calligraphy. I'd RSVP'd months ago, picked out a navy suit, even practiced my best man's toast in the shower more times than I'd like to admit. None of that prepared me for the possibility of seeing Melissa Chen again. See, here's the thing about high school crushes. They're supposed to fade. They're supposed to become funny stories you tell at parties, footnotes in the larger book of your life. Mine hadn't faded. It had just gone quiet, tucked into some back room of my heart that I didn't visit very often, but that I always knew was there. I want to tell you I was cool about it. I want to tell you I walked into that wedding with confidence, unbothered. A grown man with a good job and a decent haircut and zero anxiety about a girl from a decade ago. I would be lying. The vineyard was gorgeous. Rows of grapevines catching the late afternoon sun, the air thick with the smell of lavender and fresh-cut grass. I was helping Priya's fiancé, David, set up the gift table when I heard a laugh from behind me. I knew that laugh. I would have known it in a crowded stadium, underwater from a mile away. I turned around, and there she was. Melissa Chen didn't look like the girl from 11th grade anymore. She looked like someone who had lived a whole life I knew nothing about. Her hair was shorter now, falling just past her shoulders instead of down her back. She wore a soft green dress that made her look like she belonged in that vineyard, like the whole scene had been arranged around her. But her eyes were exactly the same. Warm, a little mischievous, like she was always in on some joke the rest of us hadn't heard yet. No way, she said, and her whole face lit up. Is that you? Depends who's asking, I said, and immediately regretted it, because who says that to someone they haven't seen in 12 years, but she laughed. That laugh again. Oh my God, I can't believe this. Priya's your sister? I completely forgot you two were related until I saw your name on the seating chart. Small world, I said, which was somehow worse than my first line. She stepped forward and hugged me, quick and easy, like no time had passed at all. She smelled like something floral I couldn't place. When she pulled back, she was still smiling. You look good, she said, grown up, in a good way. You too. I mean, the grown-up part. Not that you didn't look good before, you always. I stopped myself. I'm going to stop talking now. Please don't, she said. This is the most entertaining conversation I've had all day. We ended up seated at the same table for the reception. Table 6, according to the little gold card with looping cursive. Fate, or my sister's meddling. Knowing Priya, probably the second one, dinner was the usual wedding chaos, clinking glasses, the best man's toast running 15 minutes over, a toddler somewhere near the dance floor, screaming with pure joy about nothing in particular. Melissa and I fell into easy conversation, the kind that surprised me with how natural it felt. She told me she'd moved to Seattle after college, worked in environmental policy now, something about coastal conservation that she clearly loved talking about. Her hands moved when she got excited, like she was sculpting the words in the air. I told her about my job, the apartment I'd finally stopped renting and started buying, the dog I'd adopted 2 years ago, who mostly just slept and judged me silently. Do you remember, she said at one point, swirling the wine in her glass, that time in Mr. Halloran's class when you gave that presentation on the Cold War and your PowerPoint crashed, so you just stood there and did the whole thing from memory? I groaned. I forgot you were in that class. I was in the front row. It was the most impressive nervous breakdown I've ever watched happen in real time. She grinned. I thought it was kind of amazing, honestly. You didn't even flinch. I flinched internally for weeks afterward. Well, it didn't show. She looked at me for a second longer than felt casual. You were always like that. Steadier than you let on. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just took a sip of wine and let the moment sit there, warm and a little dangerous. like a candle too close to the edge of a table. It was during the slow dance set, after the DJ had shifted from upbeat wedding hits into something softer, that she asked me the question that cracked the whole night open. We'd stepped outside for air, standing near the edge of the vineyard where the string lights gave way to actual stars. The music drifted out through the open doors behind us, muffled and warm. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "And you have to actually answer, not deflect with a joke. That's a big ask for me specifically." "I know. Try anyway." I nodded. She wrapped her arms around herself. "Not from cold, I don't think, but from something else. Why did you never ask me to prom?" The question landed like a stone dropped into still water. I felt the ripples of it move through my chest. "I thought about it every single day for about 6 weeks," I said before I could stop myself. I had it all planned out. "I was going to ask you outside the library by the mural because I knew you always cut through there after third period." "I remember that mural," she said quietly. "I chickened out 3 times, actually walked up to you once and just asked if you'd done the calculus homework instead. Then Danny Osi asked you first, and I figured that was that." Melissa was quiet for a moment, looking out over the dark rows of grapevines. "I said yes to Danny because you never asked. Not because I wanted to go with him." I felt something in my chest tighten. 12 years and I was only just now learning this. "I had a letter," I admitted. "I wrote you a whole letter, senior year. Never gave it to you. It's probably still in a shoebox somewhere in my mom's attic if the silverfish haven't gotten to it." She turned to look at me fully now, her expression somewhere between amused and something softer, something I didn't dare name yet. "You wrote me a letter? Don't get too excited. My 16-year-old prose was rough. Lots of metaphors about stars. I think I compared your laugh to sunlight at one point, which, in retrospect, is a genuinely terrible line. I think it's sweet," she said. "I think 16-year-old, you would be relieved to know that. We didn't kiss that night. I want to be honest with you about that because I know how these stories usually go. Big confession, dramatic kiss under the stars, credits roll. That's not what happened. What happened was quieter than that, and maybe more honest. We stood out there for a long time, talking about nothing and everything. Old teachers, old friends, the ways our lives had drifted into shapes neither of us expected. She told me about a 5-year relationship that had ended 18 months ago, gently but definitively, and how she was still figuring out who she was outside of it. I told her about the 2 relationships I'd had that fizzled out from a lack of anything, really. Not bad breakups, just quiet ones, the kind where you realize you were never quite reaching for each other in the first place. "I think," she said carefully, "I'm not really in a place to just jump into something, even if I wanted to." "I get that," I said, and I meant it, even though some small, stubborn part of my chest sank a little. "But I don't want this to be it, either," she added quickly. "Tonight, I don't want to hug you goodbye and have this be another 12 years. So what do we do with that?" She thought about it, chewing the inside of her cheek the way she used to do during exams. "I live in Seattle. You're here. That's not exactly convenient." "No," I agreed. "It's not. But I'm going to be back in November. My cousin's having a baby shower, and I promised I'd come." She looked at me, a small, hopeful smile tugging at her mouth. "Would it be weird if I got your number? Properly this time. Not through a wedding seating chart. I would drive to Seattle myself to make sure that happens," I said. "But my number works too." She laughed, the real laugh, the one I remembered. What followed wasn't a whirlwind. It was something slower, something that felt like it was being built with actual care instead of rushed together out of loneliness or nostalgia. We texted most days. Not constantly, she had a demanding job and so did I, but steadily. Little things. A photo of a sunset over Puget Sound. A voice memo of my dog snoring dramatically on the couch. A long message at 11 at night about a hard day at work that turned into an hour-long phone call that neither of us wanted to end. I learned things about her that the 17-year-old version of me could never have known. That she still couldn't watch sad movies without crying, even predictable ones. That she'd become the kind of person who woke up early to go on runs, pack care. Something that would have baffled her teenage self. That she kept a running list of restaurants she wanted to try and had strong, specific opinions about what made a good bowl of ramen. I told her things too. About the year, I almost quit my job to travel and chinged out, about how my dog was technically a rescue from a woman who couldn't keep him anymore, about the fact that I still, occasionally, thought about that letter in my mom's attic. "You should find it," she told me one night on the phone, her voice soft through the static of the call. "I want to read it. Eventually. When it feels right. It's genuinely embarrassing. I don't care. I want the whole terrible, beautiful thing." The baby shower came faster than I expected and slower than I wanted, both at once. The strange math of anticipation. I picked her up from the airport on a gray, drizzly Thursday afternoon, and when she walked out through the doors, rolling a small suitcase behind her, something in my chest just settled. Like a held breath finally let go. "Hi," she said, a little shy in a way I hadn't seen from her yet. "Hi," I said back. We stood there for a second, too long before she stepped forward and hugged me. And this time it lasted longer than the one at the wedding. This time it meant something different. We spent that weekend doing ordinary things that felt extraordinary because of who I was doing them with. Coffee at a shop near my apartment. A walk with my dog, who took to her immediately, which I decided to interpret as a very good omen. Dinner at a tiny Thai place she'd found on her restaurant list, where we split 3 dishes and argued good-naturedly about whether pineapple belonged in fried rice. It was on the second night, sitting on my couch with the TV playing something neither of us was watching, that she brought it up again. "Did you find it?" she asked. "The letter." I had, actually. I'd driven out to my mom's place the week before, dug through 3 shoeboxes of old yearbooks and concert tickets before I found it. A folded piece of notebook paper, my 16-year-old handwriting cramped and earnest. I hadn't planned on bringing it, but it was sitting in the drawer of my nightstand because some part of me had hoped quietly that this exact moment might happen. "I did," I said. "You sure you want the full embarrassment?" I have never been more sure of anything. I got up, retrieved it, and handed it to her without letting myself overthink it. She unfolded the paper carefully, like it was something fragile, and read it in silence while I sat there, feeling more exposed than I had in years. When she finished, her eyes were a little wet. "The sunlight line is bad," she said, laughing through it. "But the rest of it," she stopped, pressed the letter to her chest for a second. "The rest of it is exactly what I needed to hear 12 years ago. And honestly, right now too, I should have given it to you then. Maybe." She looked at me, steady now, "But maybe some things need the extra time. Maybe we needed to become these people first. The ones who actually know how to hold on to something good instead of being scared of it." She stayed one more night than she'd planned, pushing her flight back a day without much discussion about it. On that last evening, I put on music. Nothing fancy, just something soft from a playlist I'd been building since the wedding without fully admitting why, and held out my hand. "What's this?" she asked, smiling. "You asked me once why I never asked you to prom," I said. "I figure I owe you a dance, only 12 years late." She took my hand, and we swayed slowly in my living room, my dog watching us with mild, unbothered curiosity from the corner of the couch. It wasn't a grand gesture. There were no string lights, no vineyard, no crowd of wedding guests watching us with knowing smiles. Just 2 people who had waited a long time to stop being scared, finally choosing not to be. "For the record," she murmured against my shoulder, "this is better than prom would have been." "How do you figure?" "Because back then, we were just kids who liked each other and didn't know what to do about it." She pulled back just enough to look at me. "Now we're 2 people who know exactly what we want. That's worth more than any dance in a high school gym." I didn't say anything. I just leaned down, slow enough that she could have stopped me if she wanted to, and kissed her. 12 years, 1 wedding, 1 letter, and 100 small choices later, finally landing exactly where it always should have, a pilogue. 1 year later, we didn't rush it after that. Long distance is hard, and we were honest about that with each other from the start. Some months were harder than others, some weeks were just phone calls and time zones and missing each other in a low, constant hum. But we kept choosing it, kept choosing each other. 1 visit, 1 phone call, 1 ordinary Tuesday at a time. Last spring, she moved. Not for me, she's always careful to clarify, laughing, for the job offer that happened to land in the same city I lived in. But I like to think I helped tip the scales, just a little. My sister still likes to take credit for the whole thing. "I put you 2 at the same table," She reminds me at every family gathering, insufferably smug about it. You're welcome. Maybe she's right. Maybe it really was just a seating chart and a bit of luck. Or maybe some things just take the time they need. A letter folded in a shoebox for 12 years. A question finally asked under a string of vineyard lights. A dance finally danced in an ordinary living room on an ordinary night. Either way, I stopped needing an explanation a long time ago. I just know that when she asked me, "Why did you never ask me to prom?" I finally got the chance to answer her properly. Not with words this time, with everything after. The end.